Hey everybody, what's up? This is Chris from T3 Handicapping, and I'm here to bring you Thursday's card from Indiana Grand. That's Thursday, October the 14th, 2021. If you want to follow my picks on Twitter, I will update the Indiana Grand picks based on scratches and changes. You can do so by following me at Handicapping T3. And then if you would like to purchase any of the data that goes into creating the letter grades, if you're interested in purchasing the T3 grids, I package all of those together. So one price gets you everything that goes into these ratings and gets you access to that to use in your own handicapping. So if you want to do that, just shoot me an email, t3handicapping@gmail.com. Tomorrow, I should say today, Thursday, October 14th, depending on when you're watching this. But for Thursday's cards, I actually have 3 tracks available. I do have reports pre-made for Keeneland, for Gulfstream, and for Indiana Grand. If you're interested in a different track that I don't already have, you can always reach out at t3handicapping@gmail.com and we can set up an arrangement to get you a custom track. But just because I have to build the track profile before I can get you that information, it will cost a bit more. So just be aware of that. If you're looking to play somewhere other than Keeneland, Indiana Grand, and Gulfstream, I can get it done for you. But you just got to reach out in plenty of time and just know that there's a little bit of a premium for that service. So without further ado, let's jump into Indiana Grand. Let's take a look at how we did on Wednesday. Overall, it was a really good day at Indiana Grand, particularly if you were keying horses, if you were keying top selections. Really productive day. You can see here I had some tries that were all A horses, so A1, A1. Not so great here in the third race, but the second race or the fourth race, if you had keyed my A horse in exactas or even tries, this was a very reasonable thing to hit. Race 5, same thing, A1 over B. That's good to see. Race 6, A, B, B. Race 7 was A1A. And then off the board, and then A1BC. I actually had 2 straight tries on the board today, or I should say my top 3 selections came in 1, 2, 3. And if you had just bet those in a straight box today, you actually would have been quite profitable. Now, that's not the case every day, so don't take that as betting advice that you should box my top 3 selections every time. But nevertheless, it is always nice when you can be seeing the ball quite that well. So let's go ahead and let's jump into our stuff for today then for Thursday's card at Indiana Grand. And let's do some handicapping here. Now, full disclosure, I did not get a chance to go through and actually mark up my past performances, so I'm going to be going off the worksheet. If you purchase Indiana Grand, this is part of what you will get. You would get this document here, as well as you would get the actual T3 boards that look like this. That have the different numbers and sort of where the horses rate out. But for today, we're going to start over here, and we'll just go through the worksheet a little bit. So race number 1, we're starting 5.5 furlongs on the dirt for decent horses. It's a 13 class level here. You can see that right here with the green header. This is a track that obviously favors early speed, but the pace projection is not scheduled to be very quick here. As I go through and as I look at this, I've got number 1 Chakra, who gets the A plus. I use these curve grades when going through and marking up my past performances. We've talked about that before as well. The power grade is just kind of how they rank overall. I found those to be less effective than their curved grade. So in this race, I'm going to use Chakra as my top selection. After that, I've got a B grade on both Queen Bridget and Stylish Rags, but I do have Queen Bridget higher, so I'm going to use a little bit of horse racing notation here. I'm just going to use slashes instead of the ABC columns that I typically have. Since I'm doing it live, that will help me go a little bit faster. I'm actually going to delete that because I do have another B horse, which is the number 6. And then that means that the 5 and 3, that's Vartan and Celestial Spin, kind of round out the rest. As I've talked about before, I will typically use these A and B horses very strongly. I'm less inclined to use the C's unless I'm going a huge, like pick 6 ticket or something like that, then I might think about using them. But for the most part, I stick to the A's and the B's, and that usually provides me enough coverage. I really like what the 1 has to offer here. I can see from my curved grade already that if we were looking at the past performances, this one would have the star because I can see that this one has a 14-point edge on the second best competitor. So that's one that I definitely want to be using. I'm going to scroll down here now to race number 2. We are going 5 furlongs on the turf. 17 is the class level. So a little bit worse than the horses we saw in the first race. Again, early speed has been good and the pace looks to be relatively slow. You can see a lot of gaps in the ratings here, which means that the horses don't have any relevant data. One of the things that my data pull does when I'm going through and doing this is it looks specifically at horses that have run on the surface at the distance. So some of these horses have runs to their name, but they're just not on the turf. Now, these are 2-year-olds, so they are fairly lightly raced. And as you can see, I have a lot of horses that just don't stack up very well. Now, this is a race with so many horses with an also eligible that's probably going to have some significant change as we go through some scratches and stuff on race day. That's where you want to make sure you're following me on Twitter to get that. So in the A category here, my number one play is going to be Lunar Rocket. But I do also like the 6 King Tough on the A line as well. You can see their total rank comes out. They're only separated by 5 points on the curve grade. So that means I'm definitely going to want to be using both of them fairly equally. Terrible slash mark. Okay. As for B horses, I have the 10 and the 11 both rated out 85 and 84 respectively. So I'll put the 10. That's Monarch Man. Sorry, C Spot Run. And then Monarch Man, the 11, will get a B grade as well. And then I do also have the 13 Wild Appeal. And that one's actually tied with the 11 for the same score. So I'll connect them that way. That tells me that they're one and the same. Lastly, I can see that on the C line, I'm going to be using Stalking Moon, who's the number 9. And I will use that one with a slight preference over 12. On your mark, get set. Maybe go. I don't know. I don't have that column extended far enough to see. So this is the way it's going to work out. Every other horse that's on this list as of right now does not qualify for a spot. So as you're going through and as you're making the play, just know that tomorrow on Twitter, you may see different horses kind of moving around depending on where scratches and changes take us. But that's where I'm sitting right now. 5, 6, 10, 11, 13, 9, and 12. A lot of outside there, but especially with some of the moisture that they've had at Indiana Grand of late, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, particularly on the turf course. That can be helpful. I'm going to just make sure that I can get this race squared up here. Perfect. So moving on to the third race here, we have a 6 furlong dirt race going class level 9, and we have a pace projection of 13. So once again, going pretty slow. And you can see that that leads me to a couple of horses here. So I've got the number 2, the Mary Rose, as my top selection, 100, and then 8 points down to the number 3, Winning Romance. Now, one of the things that I'm a little concerned about, and I'm glad to see that I'm not going to be using exclusively the 2 here, is I see that it goes 2-3, but I'm really worried that the 2 is an off the pace horse, and that concerns me a little bit. I want to see a horse that's early speed, particularly when I see the pace at 13. So definitely going to want to go with all 4 of my selections here. I will also use Shy Money and Addison. I don't have any seahorses in this particular race. All right, continuing to move along here. One of the things that I do like about using this view, as opposed to like going through the past performances, is within this view, you kind of can see everything in one spot rather than the past performances where you're constantly scrolling through running lines. I just find that to be extremely helpful. So this race, you can see I've got a lot of fringe contenders, but it's definitely kind of heavily weighted towards some of the top enders. So my top selection here is going to be number 8, Tropical Tornado. And then I've got that one followed up by Zafa, who's also on the A line. Now you can see here, anytime I have multiple A's, that's not going to be one of those star plays. So if scratches come along, maybe that will create some separation. But as of right now, I don't have anything major. I do not have any B grades at this time. So there is a big gap. And it may not be a single, but in this case, I do sort of have like these two horses as something that I'm going to be using very strongly because I know there's really nobody in here. And then it's a big drop back to my third place, who would be the number 7, Boone Spirit. After that would be the number 2, Lightning Rod Carl. Then you've got Ping Pong Champ, the number 4, the number 6, or sorry, the number 1, who is the 6th rated horse, and the 11 is 7th rated. And then our 8th rated horse we're not using drops below that grade level. So I know it looks a little chicken scratchy down here, but it's 8-6. Nobody on the B line, 7, 2, 4, 1, and 11 on the C line. This is a perfect example of a race where if you're just not confident in the A horses, you're probably just passing the race, to be honest with you. All right. Moving on to our next race. I honestly can't even remember what we're in race number 5 already. Wonderful. So in race number 5 here, I have a grade on every horse. Every horse is in with a chance in this situation. And of the horses, I've actually got first choices. I like Genstone, who's going to be an early presser in a dirt sprint, decent class level. It does look like it's going to be a hot pace up top. And I have 2 horses that are going to be pretty close to the lead. I think my preference here, even though they're technically tied, I'll put a little rainbow on them there. Even though they're technically tied, my preference would be to go to 4. Morning line 12-1, the horse is on the inside. This is a horse that's going to have the opportunity to sort of sit off if need be. You can see it's actually only got a Kieran point of 4. So it's not one that's going to necessarily need to be on the lead, and I think that could be an advantage if everybody's winging it up on the top. It could also be a huge advantage if there's some moisture in the track, which can sometimes produce some sort of flop to the outside, late running kicks for victories. So you can see I also have an A+ grade actually on the 7 as well. A race like this is highly unusual. For older horses, and you can see we're dealing with 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. So this is a pretty unique race to have 3 A+s all in a race like this, because with so much data, there's usually at least some level of separation, but there just isn't in this race. After that, I like Sent for His Glory, followed by Astroman, and then Meltdown finishes out our B line. Our C line is going to end up being, let's see, that was the 5th choice. And then, oops, I've got the 3 and the 5 tied for the same. And then I've got the 7 horses are tied for the same. The 7th ranked horses are both the 6 and the 9. Connect them as well, both with C pluses, and then the 2. As you're looking at this board, I use every horse. Right. So you're going to have to make a decision. Do you really think this is a race where it's wide open? In which case, then you're going to be more inclined to use, say, like the 4-horse Genstone, who you're getting a great price on at 12-1. So sometimes when I see that, every horse in the field is used, I'll start looking at the prices and who gives me value. If I really think everybody can win, why not use those bomb prices there? Right. So coming into what it should be, I think, the 6th race now. We do have some also eligibles in this one as well, which means there's going to be scratches and probably some significant change. My top selection, once again, I do actually, now this one does have a little bit of a distinction. So Be a Bolt Runner. This is 8 furlongs on turf, class level 16. It's going to be fast. This is a horse that is going to come from out of it, and does get my top rating based on the data. Princess de Oro is also going to be coming late and also gets essentially a top rating. Now, the reason I'm not actually connecting them, even though they both have 100s, this one's a rounding error, so it's a 99 point something. So the 1 and the 10 are actually different. They are not exactly equal, even though their total number came out to be the same. And you can see that clearly marked by the fact that this one is a 2 and this one is a 1. If they were both hundreds, they would both be listed specifically as ones. So the 9 is still in there with a chance as well. And then that gets us into our B line, which is going to be the 7 Union Park Gal and the 8 Lucky Shore. And then the C is Majestic Ice, the number 11 horse. So, one of the things as I'm looking at this, I see this race as being very quick on the front end. I do have the 9 who's more of a speed type. I have the 1 and the 10 who are come off the pace types, which I think is more likely to win this race. I'm pretty well covered with the different pace scenarios that I envision using the 3A horses. So, again, that's probably a situation where I'll choose to cut the B line in the interest of just sort of keeping the budget down. And that is just something as well to know about me is I'm generally a smaller bankroll player. So a lot of times I'm playing with very small amounts of money. Um, and so I'm always looking to make my tickets more efficient, use less horses to try and make sure that I can maximize my bankroll. All right, coming here, we've got the 1 chip off the old block. If you followed Indiana Grand Racing at all, this is a name you're well familiar with. This horse just keeps running over and over and over again. He is the top selection. Not far behind is Mr. Manning. Now you've got this is a class level 8s. These are good horses, fast pace. Chip off the old block's going to sit and pounce. And that's what I like to see. This horse, Mr. Manning, if he gets loose on the lead, could be problematic, but I don't really see that happening. And then you also have another horse, and it's part of why I don't think Mr. Manning will get on the front, but Flower Pecker. Now, if either one of those horses doesn't go, that could open things up. Because then you might end up with a 2-horse duel because you know you're going to have the number 4 Maters and Taters also involved. And then rounding out our picks for this race will be a few too many. This just feels like a race. Stop hammer time. I just don't like coming from way out of it. So it feels like a presser could have an advantage in this situation, and that's where I like chip off the old block. I do think there is a possibility that one of these 3 horses here could get brave, could go to the front, and could be unstoppable. And so I'm going to probably go A and B line here. Just because I can see pace scenarios in which any of those horses end up becoming the winner. All right, we're moving right along here. We're going to come on down to our next race. And actually, in terms of our thoroughbred racing, which is the stuff that I cover, this is already our last race. So we're moving along quite well here. You can see that it is an 8-race thoroughbred card. And when we take a look at what we have on the sheet here, oops, I have some scrolling issues here today. All right, there we go. So we're going a total distance of 8, so we're going a mile. This is a dirt race, and the class is 10. So again, pretty good horses, moderate pace, not anything breakneck, but at the same time, honest enough, which should mean that you should get an honest result here. This race, I'm pretty skinny actually. I really like Elusive Justice at 6-1. The horse is going to be out on the front end, and if you look outside of Cecil's Angel, I'm not really sure who's going with. And if that happens to be the case, this horse could be in really good shape. Now, I guess Diamond Solitaire is another one that will kind of be up there, and we'll certainly use that horse. But I'm going to use the one quite heavily here. Now, depending on moisture in the track and things like that, we'll kind of keep an eye out to see if there's potentially some rail bias, either positive or negative. Is it a good place to be or bad? And that may dictate whether or not I use this horse as a lone A or whether I use this horse as kind of like a co-A. Even though the grades tell me this horse should be a B, I might be inclined to use them equally. And then I get down to my C horses here. I'm going to use the 6 of Valsheba. Not 100% in love with coming from the back, but this horse has, when you look at the past performances, has shown the ability to sit a little bit closer than that. And then I do have the 7 as well. But I'll be honest, I mean, if it's not the 1 or the 4, this is not a ticket I'm going to cash. It's just plain and simple. I'm not going to. So those are the picks for today, at least before scratches and changes. Again, if you're interested in getting access to these numbers, you can see here you've actually got the numbers that I use to calibrate the speed ratings and the flow ratings and things like that. So you can actually see those numbers, and instead of just saying, "Oh, this horse is an A plus," you can actually look at this horse and say, "Oh, I can see that this horse has a 75 speed rating, whereas the next horse down only has a 67." Right? So you can actually look and use this as a true handicapping product. So that comes with your purchase, as well as the grids that I showed you on the other part of this Excel sheet. So I've got it right here, and you can see that within these grids, you've got some nice handy tools. So you actually get the race number, the distance, the pace number, so that number out of 24, what age the horses are, and then the class level. So you've got some of that data, and then you've got a chance to sort of see what exists on the page. One of the things I like to do when building exotics, I've actually placed these on the grid specifically based on where I found them to be correlated or connected. So if you play this like tic-tac-toe, so either go like this way or go this way, or you can even do some diagonals. These three are what I call the primary bet lines. They tend to be the most common occurrences where you will see these exactas and tries come up the most. Um, but I will say, if you're a player who wants to bet a little to make a lot, you will find that you can make some huge scores using what I call the tertiary bet lines, okay, which are these ones kind of in the cross. And if you look at, speed, form, overall power rating, and class, those are like the main factors of handicapping. So if you're going to hit these horses, like a 1, 4, 5, 6 try box, you're going to be avoiding the best of speed, best of form, best of rating, and best of class. And in this race, that actually holds true, because those are occupied by someone else. So you get this in the purchase, as well as the worksheet that you just saw. And again, I do have those for Thursday at Indiana Grand, Keeneland, and Gulfstream. If you'd like it for anywhere else around the country, just let me know. T3handicapping at gmail.com, and I'm happy to build those for you. But just reach out to me if you want to purchase that. Otherwise, you can just follow my picks on Twitter at handicappingT3 for Indiana Grand. I will post them up there. Good luck in all of your Thursday wagering action.